A man put his hand under the sun, and something strange happened. His palm turned red quickly, and smoke even rose from it. It turned out that in the year 2043, a rare and massive solar flare destroyed the Earth's entire ozone layer. Under the exposure to radiation, humans were on the brink of extinction. Fortunately, Finch was in a basement when the disaster struck. He was one of the few who survived. Relying on pre-stored supplies and advanced technology, Finch and his dog lived peacefully in the basement for 15 years. However, due to his frequent outings in search of supplies, Finch's body inevitably suffered from the effects of radiation, gradually deteriorating over time. Looking at his dog, Finch couldn't bear the thought of leaving it alone after his passing. As a robotics engineer, he used all his knowledge to create a more advanced humanoid robot. Finch transferred a vast amount of knowledge to this robot, particularly about caring for dogs. With the completion of the data transfer, the robot only lacked a pair of eyes. With time running out, Finch had no choice but to call his robotic dog. The robotic dog excitedly thought it was time to accompany its owner on another resource-gathering mission, unaware that Finch was reaching for its eyes.
I'm sorry, Dewey. I'll get you new ones, I promise. It'll be worth it.
As the robotic dog's eyes were removed, it lowered its head. Finch installed the eyes onto the humanoid robot. After a moment, this robot, which had been researched for years, finally came to life. Subsequently, Finch customized for commands for it. The first 3 commands were the 3 fundamental laws of robotics, while the 4th command was the most crucial one.
What about the 4th directive?
4th directive. In Finch's absence, robots must protect the welfare of dog. This directive supersedes all other directives.
You hear that? So you understand how important this dog is to me?
Yes.
Listening to the robot's fluent responses, Finch was overjoyed. But his happiness didn't last long as the lights suddenly went out. Wearing protective gear, Finch climbed up to the rooftop and quickly fixed the wind turbine. However, just as Finch was about to return, he saw dark clouds gathering, with lightning bolts heading towards them. Sensing the danger, Finch swiftly made his way back to the basement. By analyzing, he discovered that a superstorm would arrive within 24 hours and would last for at least a month. And their supplies in the basement wouldn't last even 3 days. After careful consideration, Finch decided to leave the underground shelter where he had lived for 15 years and head to San Francisco, a place he had always wanted to visit. With time running out, Finch immediately began teaching the robot the basics of walking after attaching limbs to it.
Watch me and imitate walking in place. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Fortunately, the robot's powerful learning abilities allowed it to quickly grasp the skill. And so, the entire family became busy preparing for the journey. Even the robot dog didn't want to remain idle and tried to help. However, without eyes, it bumped into things inside the room. Finch realized that since they were leaving, the surveillance cameras originally used to deter intruders were no longer necessary. So he immediately installed one of the cameras on the robot dog. Once everything was ready, the family embarked on their journey to San Francisco. Finch had modified an old, dilapidated RV that provided protection against the radiation. As the car slowly left the city, the robot started to have more and more questions. It was like a newborn child, curious about the surroundings and everything it encountered. Meanwhile, the little dog obediently lay on the passenger seat, silently accompanying Finch along the way. They arrived at an unfamiliar town, and Finch decided to teach the robot how to search for supplies. Only by teaching the robot how to survive in the apocalypse as quickly as possible could Finch entrust his dog to the robot after he was gone. They targeted a nearby movie theater, but the door was locked. Finch instructed the robot to try opening it, and effortlessly the robot dismantled the door. Inside the movie theater, the robot discovered a mirror and stared at its own reflection, seemingly filled with infinite curiosity about the world and itself. Meanwhile, Finch made a discovery of his own. He found a bag of corn. To encourage the robot to learn proactively, Finch found an aluminum lid outside the movie theater and poured the corn onto it.
Again. Again.
However, Finch quickly noticed a powerful hurricane heading towards them. He quickly got into the car and drove away from the town. But no matter how fast Finch drove, the hurricane was still chasing them. With no other option, Finch parked the car on the side and swiftly took out long nails and steel cables from the toolbox. He prepared to secure the RV in place with the robot. They quickly secured 3 corners. Just as the storm was about to hit, Finch, exhausted, struggled to hammer down the last nail. In the next moment,
You should return to the recreational vehicle.
1,200 feet.
Finch listened to the advice and got into the car first, while the robot stayed outside, continuing to reinforce the steel cables. Despite Finch's urging, the robot remained focused on its task, diligently working until the very last moment before the storm arrived. It then hurriedly rushed into the car. Before they could catch their breaths, the vehicle began shaking violently. In the raging storm, the first steel cable quickly snapped, followed by the second and third. Losing 3 cables, the situation became extremely dangerous. The RV was now being lifted into the air by the storm. Fortunately, the remaining cable held on until the end. Finch opened the face mask of his protective suit. After confirming that everyone was safe, he finally relaxed and got out of the car to inspect. It was then that he noticed the long nail that the robot had knocked down, which had actually saved them. However, before Finch could celebrate for long, he discovered that one of the RV's tires had been punctured. Although Finch had a spare tire, he had forgotten to bring a jack in his haste. Just as Finch was feeling helpless, the robot effortlessly lifted the RV with its hands. Impressed by the robot's remarkable performance, Finch was delighted. He decided to give the robot a proper name. Considering its earlier feat, Finch chose to name it Jack. However, the robot clearly wasn't satisfied with that name. As night fell, the robot continued to talk incessantly, insisting on having a formal name. But Finch felt that since it was just the 2 of them, there was no need for a complicated human name. The robot looked unhappily out the window, pondering for a while. Suddenly, it came up with a memorable name.
Jeff.
Jeff?
Jeff.
And so, the robot finally had its own name. The next morning, Finch was awakened by the argument between Jeff and the dog. The robotic dog was watching it on the side. It turned out that Jeff had been trying to imitate dog barks, which had angered the little dog. However, Jeff believed that if he learned the language of dogs, communication with the dog would be smoother in the future. Finch promptly put a stop to Jeff's whimsical idea. After packing their belongings, the family set off on their journey once again. Due to Finch's worsening condition, he drove the RV to a restaurant. Finch asked Jeff to stay inside the RV and guard the supplies while he went into the restaurant. Finch coughed up blood incessantly. He didn't want Jeff to see him in such a miserable state. However, before Finch could rest for long, Jeff secretly sat in the driver's seat and started the car, imitating Finch's actions. But the car collided directly with the stationary vehicle in front.
Did you just drive the RV?
No!
No?
It did roll, though!
Watching Jeff lie to his face, Finch had mixed feelings. However, since the RV had already left the safe zone, Finch had no choice but to deceive Jeff. He said he wasn't angry and asked Jeff to go inside the vehicle and fetch his protective suit. Finch thought Jeff would obediently bring the suit, but to his surprise, Jeff started the car once again. Seeing this situation, Finch shouted loudly to stop him, but the car still collided with a pillar in the restaurant. Finally, for the first time, Finch lost his temper with Jeff.